Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is another one of our Development at Work series, and we have for this evening's Development at Work series, we actually have a number of students coming from different courses. So we have with us the Masters in Development Management program, the degree program, but we also have a special class that is with us here at AIM that opened yesterday. And this is the third Career Ministers training in economic diplomacy for the Department of Foreign Affairs. So welcome the diplomats from DFA. Your Excellency Ambassador Adam Zuellig, our friend, the Polish ambassador to both the Philippines and Malaysia. Professor Alojzy Nowak, who will be our speaker.
I will be your friend too.
And our friend. Faculty, students, alumni, friends, and guests, good afternoon. Welcome to the Asian Institute of Management. This, as I mentioned, is a part of a series that we call Development at Work. Our NDM students have heard this spiel quite often, but bear with me as I explain it to our other guests. The Development at Work series is offered irregularly but quite frequently at the Asian Institute of Management. You might say it is a rather opportunistic series. Through our network, as we find individuals of note who come to the Philippines that do significant work or are involved with significant organizations, we try to get them to come and speak at AIM. And the topics that we've offered here over the last 4 years, this being, I believe, about the 80th of these talks, ranges from politics. So we've had, for example, a human rights lawyer from Cambodia who spoke about the Khmer Rouge Tribunal a few years ago. We've had members of Parliament from the UK, particularly from Northern Ireland, who have come to talk about the Irish peace process. At one point, we had the Foreign Minister of Georgia come and talk about the growing role or the plans to grow their relations with Southeast Asia. We've also had economists come and talk to us, conditional cash transfers, to talk to us about microfinance, to talk about remittances of overseas workers. We've had other academics to talk about impact evaluation of education programs in Pakistan, in India, in Cambodia. So we've had a wide range of topics that have been offered through the Development at Work series. Today, we have the pleasure of having Professor Alojzy Nowak, who will talk to us about the fiscal problems of the Eurozone. Is the Euro going to survive? This talk will discuss Europe's role in the world economy by providing a detailed analysis of the impact of countries joining the European Union and its trade performance on the world economy. This talk will also offer potential solutions to the financial crisis of the European Union. Professor Nowak is professor in economics and the current vice rector for research and liaison of the University of Warsaw, Poland. Prior to this, he served as the dean of the Faculty of Management and director of the European Center in the same university. He has also served as visiting professor in the University of Cambridge, the postgraduate business school in Grenoble, France, the University of North Florida, and the University of North Colorado, among others. He is a member of the editorial board of Foundations of Management. He is the vice editor-in-chief of the Interdisciplinary Journal of Economics and Business Law and International Business, and the editor-in-chief of the Journal of Interdisciplinary Economics. His research interests include banking, international economics, risk management in financial markets and capital markets, macro and microeconomics, and the economic analysis of the European Union. He's a prolific author and researcher. Professor Nowak has published more than 50 papers and books on global economy and European integration. In 2003, he received the Minister of Higher Education Prize for the book European Integration, the Chance for Poland, ? In 2012, he released his most recent book entitled The European Integration Process in the New Regional and Global Setting. Ladies and gentlemen, join us in a warm welcome for Professor Alojzy Nowak.
Dean, ladies and gentlemen, it's a great pleasure to be here. I'm actually for the second time in Manila. I spent one day and one night approximately 8 or 9 years ago here attending the conference because for a certain time, for a certain period, I was also working on doing some research for the Asia-Europe Foundation with the location in Singapore. And we were looking how the Asians perceive European Union. It was very interesting because at that time most Asian countries which were analyzed, or most Asians perceived Europe in the following way. Number one, Europe or European Union meant for many. England, Germany, France, Italy, and Nokia. Nokia usually was Finland, but Nokia was perceived as Europe. So at that time we understood that however we thought, and we still think that Europe is an important place in the world, it didn't mean for everyone and for everybody the same. So we were also thinking that it would be nice, and it is nice from time to time, to invite people from this region, or sometimes to go to this region and to tell a little bit about Europe and about European problems. But we have been dealing frankly with the same situation in Europe. When I am teaching in Grenoble, or in France, when I am teaching in England at Cambridge University, not very many students, European students, know about the European Union or about European Monetary Union. However, Europe and the European Union and the European Monetary Union, they seem to be quite important in present world, at least the European Union as a whole, 28 countries, because for the first time in history, when you measure the power, economic power, for the first time in history, Europe is number one and the United States is behind in terms of the total GDP. But I will try to discuss this evening the fiscal problems of Eurozone, and I will try to answer the question whether the Euro is going to survive. And maybe at the very beginning, before you leave, how much time do I have?
We have till about 6 o'clock and then questions.
Till 6 o'clock? So I have to
6:30.
work 6:30?
6:30 at most, including questions.
Okay, so I have to work very fast because, as you know, university professors usually talk a little bit more than is required. So I have to start to talk immediately because I was expecting maybe 70 or 75 minutes. So it's good that I didn't come with Professor PowerPoint because it will be even worse. So when you look at Euro, just now I'm answering the second question, what is the situation with Euro as a money? Here we would have Euro against US dollar, zero over time here, and here was 1999 Euro was implemented. Nowadays we have 2014. And Euro is doing, when you look at the exchange rate, something like that. So, if you have economic backgrounds or mathematical backgrounds, it's easy to read this kind of graph. But if you do not have, it's more difficult. So, For that reason, economists are using usually trends. So we have been observing such kind of a trend. So euro frankly is doing well. Since, in particular, 2001. Up to 2001, euro was losing and the American dollar was becoming stronger. Since 2001, mainly because as a result of attack on America, maybe for different reasons, difficult to say just now, euro is doing pretty well. Euro is stronger and stronger. When we look at the real terms also, when we look at the foreign reserves, in what currencies foreign reserves are being held or maintained nowadays, we can say that at the beginning in 1999, in euro, it was maintained approximately 12–13% of foreign reserves. Nowadays, it is maintained approximately 40%, 40. So much more. So this means that the world believes in euro, that they have been changing foreign reserves from US dollar into euro. And the biggest problem mostly is that euro is too strong for many countries or for many businesses within Europe. Not too weak, but too strong. But when you look at this graph, there is no question whether euro is going to survive, but I will go a little bit more in details. So just now, I don't need to explain you what is European Union, but anyway, I will first go just to show when we are talking about European Union and Eurozone, what do we mean? So there are certain steps of the process of integration. I will be not defining, I am under the pressure of the time just now, so I will only show. Here we have free trade area. The next step of integration is so-called customs union. The third step of integration is common market. I will tell only that common market is an agreement between two or more countries in result of what? Four freedoms are implemented. Free movement of goods, free movement of capital, free movement of labor, and free movement of services. The fourth step is monetary union. So we can say for freedom plus common monetary policy. Common monetary policy for which is responsible one central institution, which is central bank in the case of European Union, European Central Bank. And this central bank has been using the basic tools for running monetary policy. And the basic tools are following: supply of money, interest rates, mandatory reserves, and exchange rates. So no national banks. And then the last step, probably the last step, is political union. So we have some political unions in the world. We could say that in political union we would have also common government. In case of European Union is European Commission, common system, court system, and common parliament. And to some extent we have common court system and common parliament within the European Union, but still national governments, national system of court systems and national parliaments are pretty strong. So when you would be looking for such organization, political union, you would see particularly the United States of America. Plus in America they have one language and one culture. If you are looking for another political unions with different languages and to some extent different cultures, you will see Switzerland with 3 or 4 languages, or Canada on the other side with 2 languages. And by the way, in the States, English won around 100 years ago by one voice only, with the second strongest language. Most American students think that it was Spanish, but of course it was not Spanish, it was German. So in America, they have been speaking English. So where is Europe just now? Europe is somewhere between monetary union and common market. Here we have 18 countries which have been using single currency, common currency euro, and here we have 10 countries which have been using their own national currency. So European Union is here. 28 countries. 28 countries. This is European Union. As you see, it's something not exactly normal, I would say, because some countries, according to any concept, economic and financial concepts, have been developing faster. Theoretically, those 18 countries, and some have been developing slower, at least in terms of regulations, in terms of financial settlements, etc., etc. So this is not the positive sign, because Europe is also, European Union is also about cohesion. Cohesion means that we should develop more or less on the same level. But situation is even more complicated. War situation is more complicated because those 18 countries are also divided in two groups. So we have one group of extremely well organized and developed countries, organized in particular but also developed, and we call them core countries. Among those core countries are Germany, so German-speaking countries, Germany, Austria, but also Benelux countries like Belgium, the Netherlands, France. We could say in broader sense, northern and western countries. And here there is a second group where we have been dealing with so-called peripheral countries. Peripheral countries. So it's not a good sign of European Union. And the peripheral countries, they have not necessarily nice names. We call them pigs. Portugal, Ireland, Greece, and Spain. Sometimes among those pigs countries, we have also big I, Italy. So ironically, Italy is one of the best developed countries in the world, one of the G7 countries, and according to certain European standards, Italy is among pigs. So why is the distinction? What is common of all those countries? I mean, the most common thing is that all of them are in debt. All of them have debt problem. They have, in particular, big budgetary deficit. So budgetary deficit, it is expected, it is required to have, according to international standards, which were imposed by the World Bank, IMF, the United States, European Commission, etc., that it is required to have budgetary approximately, more or less, 3% of the GDP. And all those countries have budgetary deficit between 12 and 15%. So it's huge, 400% or 500% higher. Not good. Maybe the calculations here are bad. Maybe this parameter doesn't work. But up to now, everybody thinks, most countries in the world believe that this is a proper estimation. So once it's proper estimation, it's too high. And the second parameter is the public debt. Public debt should be, it's required to have something between, or something equal, more or less equal, or lower than 60% of the GDP. In most of those countries, We have a public debt estimated between 150 and 200%. So not good. So those countries are in debt. When you look also from what is the debt just now in total, some numbers, they are not never exact numbers because I am showing in dollars or in euro and exchange rates has been changing, etc. So more or less, approximately we have here 4 trillion of US dollars debt. So 3.5, 3.4 trillions of euros. Here is the debt. In the worst situation nowadays is Ireland. However, you heard mostly about Greece, and I will tell in a moment why you heard about Greece. Portugal, Greece, and Spain, they have debt per capita estimated at approximately something between $28,000 and $30,000 dollars. So if we assume regular situation, normal situation, if they work, consume and save, if the rate of saving is between 5 and 6%, it will take them to repay the debt 30, 35, maybe 40 years. So the chance for repaying in this way is not big, but possible. In Ireland is worse because it is estimated that the debt per capita is approximately 135,000 US dollars. So the Irish people, in order to repay, they would need probably 80, 90 years. So 4, 5, maybe even 6 generations. So we cannot expect just now that the debt will be repaid. So we have to look for another solutions, for another proposals, what to do. These are only information. And now, what has happened that we have been dealing with such big or relatively big debt? To explain that, we have to say, or I have to say, for what reasons monetary union was implemented. Mostly, I don't know how much you know about monetary union, how much you are interested, what is said here, etc. But what I know is that in most cases, in most places in the world, we have been analyzing European Union and both European Union and European Monetary Union from economic and financial perspective. And frankly, both European Union and European Monetary Union were established, were created for political reasons. It will be easy to understand for what reason it was created, European Monetary Union, when I say for what reason it was created European Union. And European Union was created in officially 1957 for 3 main reasons. Reason number one, it's not nice, and I'm sorry if there is any German citizen here, but it is said that the reason number one was to civilize Germany. What does mean civilized Germany, civilization of Germany? This means, or we can explain in the following way, that Germany, beginning of 50s, was one of the strongest countries in Europe. They were doing extremely well. How did we measure at that time the power? By production, steel and coal. And steel and coal at that time was used mostly to produce tanks and aircrafts. And Germany lost, in result of the Second World War, approximately 1/3 of its territory. And Europeans, in particular Brits and French, afraid that Germany one day would be willing to get to get back the land. So they are afraid of the Third World War. So they said, we had to organize, we had to do something in Europe to control Germany. And they decided to create an organization of the countries producing and exporting steel and coal. Not to increase of the production of steel and coal, just to control, just to limit production of steel and coal. The second reason was a fear of Soviet Union, of communism. Communism was moving from east to the west. And Europeans thought that no single country will be able to fight or to stop the communists. So they said, once we have economic organization, strong economically and financially, we will create our army, or European army plus police forces, and we'll be fighting against the communists. And the third reason was to try to compete again against America, against the United States. America, after Second World War, became very strong power. Europe was losing. So Europeans were thinking, we have to compete with America. And no single country is able to compete with the United States. Together we can compete. European Union was working, 60s, 70s, 80s. At the beginning of 90s, a huge criticism of European Union appeared among the European countries. Ironically, Central and Eastern Europe, I am from Poland, we wanted to join European Union, and the Europeans, old Europeans in Western Europe, they wanted to dissolve European Union. Why? Because they said, it's not economic institution, not economically efficient institution, it's not financially efficient institution. We don't want to pay for the bureaucrats in Brussels, for the kids going to the universities, husband supposes women, etc., etc. And additionally, they said, we have been dealing with globalization. At that time, it was said about globalized world, globalized village. And globalization is about almost the same what is European Union. It was a huge discussion. But some people, those who survived Second World War, said the following thing. It was long-lasting discussion. Wait a minute. You are right that the European Union is not a very efficient organization, both economically and financially. But one positive thing we have to say about Europe and European Union, that for the last 50 or 60 years, Europe was living in peaceful development. The Europeans were not killing each other because of everything. So they said, if you want to live in a peaceful region, we have to support the European Union, and we have to think about the European Union, and we have to think how to support the development and existing of the European Union. Do you want to live in such Europe? It was asked the question, and most of the societies answered positively, yes, you are right, we are supporting. So they started to think and discuss, the economists, politicians, journalists, students, etc., what to do. And they said that we criticize very much European Union in so-called good time. Economies in most countries were doing well. So what could happen if the economies are not doing well? So they said they returned, we called this guy just now father of Euro, to Robert Mandel, who was discussing the conditions of the countries who could have common currency, having different financial systems, economic systems, and political systems. So they said that financial or monetary integration is needed. So they said that money, monetary system, is like the blood in the human body. You cannot live without the blood. You can live without hand, you have to survive without leg, but not without blood. So the first reason for implementation of monetary union was to deepen the process of integration within European Union to avoid of dissolvement of the European Union. But there was a second reason. What was the second reason? Financial crisis in Asia, in particular in Japan. What does mean financial crisis? Financial crisis means in real terms that people, businesses, households, whomever, are escaping of certain financial instruments at that time of US dollar. As you know, US dollar in 60s, 70s, 80s was frankly the only international currency, or the strongest international currency. Approximately 80-85 of all operations all over the world were made via US dollar. So dollars were not in the United States, dollars were outside the United States. And Asian crisis meant at that time that one day US dollars could return to America, could go to America if the businesses, the states, didn't want to maintain their wealth in US dollar, their assets. So what would happen probably if American dollars, there are some research answering the question when you assume that since 1930 Fed created 100% of US dollars, how much is on American soil? You probably heard the number. The East Coast universities, which are researching, Princeton, Yale, and Midwest, Chicago, they say that on American soil, they have been dealing with approximately 3-5% of US dollars, the rest outside the United States. So coming back the money would influence very much inflation in the United States. Easy access to money could increase the demand for products. And America was not the biggest producer. America was a big producer of financial instruments, but not necessarily of the products. So probably the prices will go up. Having increased prices, American markets or American businesses would be losing markets because the goods will be too expensive. So probably some businesses will be closed. Closing businesses would mean that people will be fired. So social unrest. Social unrest usually means that you are not electing this guy, you are not electing this president, this governor, etc. So probably it would be some kind of an agreement to fight or to be against such situation. What kind of agreement? Probably the US would decide to devaluate US dollar. Devaluation of US dollar, let's say by 15 or 20%, would mean at that time collapse or bankruptcy of 1/3 or at least 1/4 of the world. Of all countries which maintained their foreign reserves in US dollar. Because if you have one day 100 boxes, you make an agreement that you will be paying 100 boxes tomorrow for in such any business, and devaluation means by 20% the next day you will have $80. I mean nominally 100, but in real terms 80. And your contractor says to you, but we agreed that you pay 100, and you are saying, no, I'm sorry, I have only 80. So saying, I'm sorry, means that you are losing liquidity and you are going into bankruptcy. So Europeans were thinking at that time, Europeans in European Union, that from economic perspective, we are almost as strong as America in terms of creating GDP. Financially, America is here, Europe is here. So they said it's time to do something. It's time to implement currency which will be able to compete with the American dollar. So not only dollarization, maybe also Europeization. So another reason, economic, not necessarily. Both of the reasons were not necessarily very economic. One, to deepen the process of integration, the another, to compete or to stabilize world's economy, to build second pillar by implementation of euro. The name was different, but it doesn't matter what was the name. There were also some smaller internal reasons. What were the smaller internal reasons? The competition between France and Germany. Germany again was becoming very strong, also financially, and France wanted to control to some extent Germany. So Germany and French were thinking that once we have common European bank and we will be also on the board, maybe we will have a president of the bank, we will be controlling. If we are not, we are outside, we are losing. And also was initial German reason. The discussion took place a long time, for 3 or even 4 years. Unification of Germany. In Germany we had very strong developed west part and not developed east part. And once you have strong currency, you cannot compete on international, you cannot compete even on national market. So, and Germans, the German financial system, Deutsche Bundesbank wanted to have strong Deutschmark. And the German government and German trade unions and German workers wanted to have weaker currency because they wanted to be higher, they wanted to have income, they wanted to be competitive on the national and international market. So they could not come together. They were discussing. Dr. Dittmeier, who was the president of the Deutsche Bundesbank, didn't want to agree for weakening Deutschmark. He was extremely powerful person, and Deutsche Bank was extremely powerful. When President of Germany or Bundeskanzler wanted to see Dittmeier, usually he had to go to Frankfurt and never Dittmeier to Bonn as a president. So this shows how strong was this guy. But anyway, it was decided that euro will be implemented. But you could not say the same what I am saying to you, to the nations. So the politicians, European politicians, were looking, of course, for different arguments. What are the different arguments? Economic arguments. They said the following thing: we all are in common market. We are trading. We have different currencies. So if the Germans would like to buy something in France, they have to exchange Deutschmark into French franc. If others want to buy something in other places, they have to exchange. And as you know, when you go to the bank to exchange any currency, there are always two prices. When you are buying, you are paying more. When you are selling, you are getting less. And they calculated. I didn't calculate the number, so I'm quoting that the cost of exchanges were at the level of approximately $1 trillion of US dollars. So they asked the question, they named the cost, they are so-called transactional costs. So they asked the nation, would you like to pay for transactions $1 trillion of US dollars, or you would like us to use the money to support, let's say, research, healthcare, pension funds, etc., etc. Of course, the nation said, yes, we want to, or at least 60-65% said, we want to support the pension funds, etc. So it was one reason. The another reason was, they said that there are many speculators on financial markets, and they are speculating by buying and selling currencies. And to avoid speculations, you have to hedge all the businesses. And hedging is a costly thing. Would you like to pay for hedging? Nations said, no, we don't want to pay. So that was another reason. And the third reason was, they said, we are in common markets. So what does mean in real terms common market? That we have to have one price for one good. And they gave an example of German car, Audi. For what? Consumers had to pay in Germany, in Hamburg, 50,000 Deutschmark, and in Copenhagen, in Denmark, 30,000 Deutschmark. So they asked the question, what is the reason for such huge differences in the prices? Everybody knows, economists, professors of economics teach, that one price, one good, one price. Do you want one price? Nation said, yes, we want. Okay, agreed. Referenda, and everybody agreed. But a problem. What a problem? The next step, I am saying. Europe is very diversified. Europe is not a monolith. So the fathers of European Monetary Union knew that to be successful, the countries have to fulfill certain economic criteria. Otherwise, they will be not successful. And the ministers of finances and presidents of the central banks met in Maastricht, the Netherlands, in 1991. They analyzed everything what happened in the world, different places, and they said, when you want to join monetary union, when we want to build and be successful, we have to be similar in certain macroeconomic indicators. What are the indicators? Two I indicated already. Budgetary deficit and public debt, around 3%. These are so-called fiscal criteria. And they are free monetary criteria. Low level of inflation, low level of interest rates, and stable exchange rate. What does mean low level of inflation? I mean, in any place means something different. So in Europe at that time, so in 90s, we had countries where the rate of inflation was Austria, 1% yearly, Denmark, 0.8%, and France, 1.2%. So they said, it is nice, so we cannot look at one country, but maybe at those three countries together, and we calculate arithmetic rate of inflation. So they add 0.8 plus 1.2 plus 1, 3 divided by 3, 1%. And they said 1% will be very difficult even for Germany or for Belgium to achieve. But so we have a certain margin, and they added margin. What margin? 1.5 percentage points. So they said, if you would like to join European Monetary Union, you have to have interest rate of inflation not higher than 2.5 percentage points. And it was a huge problem for, now we call them PIGS countries, because in many of them they had rate of inflation 12-15%. But they said, it's difficult, but we have to join. Why they wanted to join? Because monetary union was called as a club of gentlemen. And if you have club of gentlemen, if you have Germany, France, and some other countries in, so you have also foreign investment. They were expected that because Europe is stable, Europe is strong economically, Europe is very well managed, controlled, etc. So capital from outside will come, mostly from America, but not only. So new capital, new investment means new jobs, increase of GDP, etc. So the countries said, if we are not here, we will be losing. We have to be. We are as good as they. Can we not to do that? We can. Yes, we can, like President Obama says. They said earlier about the same. So they then lower rate of percentage rate. average in 3 countries with the lowest rate of inflation plus 2.5%. And then stable, no time to discuss deeper. So the countries started to fight. So how could they fight? They increased the taxes to increase income because they were fighting against budgetary deficit. They lowered, in most cases, expenditures, so they spent less money on education, on healthcare, on pensions, and they lowered, in some cases, also wages, at least in public sector. Anyway, after 3, 4, some 5 years, they fulfilled the criteria. Some of them also were a little bit cheating. In what way they were cheating? As you know, 15 years ago, so-called international accounting standards did not exist. Each country was delivering information or was using standards in its own way. So if you took some courses in accounting, you know that in certain situations, under certain conditions, the present expenditures you can show as a future expenditures and future income as current income. And the Greeks in particular did that. So on the paper, everything was okay, but in real things, not necessary. 50% okay and 50% not okay. And on January 1st, 1991, the union was established, monetary union, and the countries joined European Monetary Union. And the next day, January 2nd, they said, finally, we were suffering, we were fighting, but finally we are in heaven. Why they were in heaven? Because in most of those countries, again I am repeating, they had to pay for credit 15, 17, 20% a year. And they joined the club where the price of credit was something between 3 and 4%, 5, 7 times cheaper. So they said, finally, we are in heaven and we have to enjoy of being in heaven. What does mean enjoy? Let's go to the bank and take credit. Whom? Households. Because of what? Because they wanted to change their houses, they wanted to change their cars, they wanted to send their kids to the universities, they wanted to go for vacation. To what banks they went? In Greece to Greek banks, in Spain to Spanish banks. But the problem was that the Spanish banks and the Greek banks didn't have money. So the Spanish banks and the Greek banks went to where? To German banks, to French banks, to Dutch banks. To borrow money and to lend the money to their communities. So they were lending money at 3% in Germany or 3.5% or in France, and then they were lending at 5% to their societies. And then the governments said, we have also just now the opportunity to change the country. We will be what? Issuing treasury bonds and obligations, and the banks will be buying treasury bonds and obligations, and we will have money to build what? Highways, railways, airports, hospitals, universities. And they were buying. Whom? They. The German banks, French banks, and then other banks. Why? This is a tricky thing just now. One of the reasons is that you have to look at the societies living in Europe. Probably in Asia, you will observe this similar situation. The countries and the philosophies of living, working, and investing are slightly different in Europe. I mean, you have countries, in particular northern and western countries, where the people and businesses are living according to following philosophy. First work, then save, then invest, and then enjoy your life. And you have, in some countries, opposite philosophy. First enjoy your life, then maybe work, then maybe save, then maybe invest. So once you have such philosophy, work, save, invest, and eventually enjoy your life, there is no place for credit. So the banks, German banks, French banks, Dutch banks, etc., they were suffering because they didn't know what to do with money. Some of this money was invested where? Overseas, in America. Excessive amount of money in the States. Results, you know. No time, this is for another lecture. What happened in the States? Easy access to money, to bank credits, etc. Prices. But we are in Europe just now because I am trying to explain. If you give me 5 more minutes because I have to present scenarios. What is the situation? So the German banks, the French banks, and other banks, they had, finally we have good clients. Finally we have clients who are willing to borrow money from us. We are lending, we are increasing profit, we are maximizing profit, we are happy. All of those countries were checked. By whom? By agencies, European agencies. They fulfilled all the criteria to join. So why not to lend them money? They were borrowing and banks were lending the money. What did they do with the money? They were not stupid. I mean, they are criticized very much nowadays. But they were also intelligent in this sense that part of this money they were investing in some places. Where they were investing money? In particular in Central and Eastern Europe. Why they were investing? Because 12 countries from Central and Eastern Europe, at that time 10, were on the way to European Union, to join European Union. So the prices in all those countries were marketized, we can say. Marketized means that they were rising. Prices, and in particular on real estate market. Houses, apartments, land, etc. So the prices were growing up every year by approximately 20–30%. And they were borrowing money, paying 5% or 4%. So part of this money they were investing in Poland, Lithuania, Estonia, Czech Republic, Slovakia, Slovenia, etc. Because they were expecting that after 5–6 years, the prices double. They will send the real estate, they will get money back, they will repay this money, pay credit, pay interest rate, and 50–60% of the extra income they will have in their pockets. And everything worked in 2000, 2001, 2003, 2004, 2005. And suddenly, Europe imported virus from overseas. Prices. The prices went down by 50, 60, 70%. And the banks were expecting for repaying the credit. So they invested money, they didn't have money, they didn't invest to innovations, new technologies, etc., and they were unable to repay. And problem appeared. What to do? And then criticism. Huge criticism, mostly of them. Why they were borrowing money, why they were not thinking about the future, etc. But of course, it's another question, why the banks were lending them money and financial institutions, etc. And just now we have been discussion. What to do, how to get out of this situation. 5 scenarios. So the message is that both sides, to some extent, are fault. The lenders and the borrowers. Scenarios, how to get out of this situation. I will show you 5 scenarios, and the chance for the introduction of any of those scenarios is close to 0. So we will be dealing, and you will be dealing with those situations for the next 10, 15 years. Scenario number 1. Expenditures are too high, income is too low, so what to do? Increase income, decrease expenditures. How to increase budgetary income in particular? There are 2 or 3 options. Number 1, increase the taxes. Number 2, decrease wages in public sector, decrease expenditures on education, healthcare, pension funds, etc. Greeks are trying to do that. What is the effect? So I'm talking about implementation of very restrictive financial policy, both fiscal and monetary. Greeks are trying to do that. Results, Athens is burning. People are protesting, people do not agree, people say, what you are talking about? We had our own drachma. We could work, we could go for vacation, we could support our kids, etc. Just now we have common currency and we are dying. Go away, we don't want to have euro. Do we have any positive experiences of implementation of such strong and restrictive financial policy? Yes, we do. Where? In Baltic states. Several years ago, 7 or 8 years ago, Estonia, Lithuania, and Latvia were exactly in the same situation. So what they did? They implemented extremely restrictive financial policy, reducing wages by 20 or 25% and increasing taxes by 20%. So why in Baltic states and not in Greece? Well, probably for political and psychological reasons. Greece is the country with long-lasting democracy, and people understand what is their position. In Baltic states, they were former Soviet Union countries where government was always right and was in power. So when government said, we have to implement, people said, if we have, we are ready to be with you, sir, or Mr. Minister or Prime Minister. They were crying and they were introducing. The Greeks say, never. Such Europe we are not willing to have. So the chance for implementation of such restrictive policy is close to 0. So maybe scenario number 2. If you agreed with me that the fault is on both sides, among the lenders and donors, so maybe cut the debt by 50% or 60%. So, in other words, it is called restructurization of the debt. But there is a problem. Some countries are not involved in this procedure, and they say no, we do not agree. So the borrowers and the lenders would agree, but some were not borrowing and some were not lending, and they say no, we are against, objection. And as you know, the beauty of European Union is that all decisions are being made on consensus base. So in other words, everybody must agree. And at least 5 or 6 countries disagree. So the chance of restructurization of the debt is close to 0. So scenario number 3. Argentinization of Europe. Argentinization means that it happened something like that in Argentina some time ago, 12, 15 years ago. What did the Argentinians do? They devaluated Argentinian peso against the US dollar. To what reason? To increase competitiveness of the products, Argentinian products. So maybe it will be a good solution, but the problem is that what I said at the beginning, there are core countries which are doing very well. The Germans even increasing surplus on current account despite strong euro. Others are doing relatively well. So they say, we don't see any reason for devaluation of euro. Be as good as we, and you will be successful. So, work harder, work wisely, consume less, and you will be happy. We don't want devaluation. But this is also another reason. As you remember what I said at the beginning, one of the reasons for introduction of euro was to stabilize financial world. And reducing, devaluating euro would mean probably dollarization of the world's economy. So we have been building second pillar, second leg, and suddenly the second leg could be cut and back to dollarization. And I think that at least Europe, but probably big part of the world, is not very much interested in only dollarization. Even the US professors and Americans, and maybe even Fed, are not interested in dollarization. Because euro means also stabilization of the economy. As you know, by the way, the third leg is expected. There is huge expectation that maybe China will join as well. And Chinese currency will be playing important role as the third leg. So on third legs, the world will be more stable. Just now, up to now, China is not interested for various reasons, not time to discuss just now. So probably, or the chance for implementing scenario number 3 is close to 0. So maybe scenario number 4 will be resurrection of Europe. Most, if not all of you are from Catholic countries, so you understand resurrection, rebirth. I'm also from the Catholic country. Rebirth of Europe. Rebirth means cohesion and equality between the countries, and also solidarity. European Union was at least, and maybe one day will be, about solidarity. So if you are doing bad, it was not your fault, not only fault. Those who are doing better should help you. What does mean in real terms? So we had some discussion that maybe, that number 1, it is said that European Union was Americanized. What does mean Americanization in European Union, monetary union in particular? That we built so-called friendly state. Friendly state means expenditures high, income low. The problem in Europe is that we have no special sources of financing. However, once euro is used all over the world, maybe it will be the same case. You have problem, you are producing more money. Like recent chairman of Fed. But nowadays we don't, Professor Bernanke, is access to money. Now we are not very much interested there in that. So it is said that maybe, so we should increase income and decrease expenditures. But in Europe it is said that single countries cannot do that. So it is said that we should build some kind of, let's say, European financial agency controlling budgets. So technically it would look in the following way. That the national leaders, that the countries are preparing their budgets, Minister of Finance, then Prime Minister, then the budgets go to the Parliament, the people are voting, the parliamentarians are voting, and then the budget comes back to this agency, European Financial Agency, and there are sitting people, young people like you, and they are checking page after page, and they say 20% too high expenditures, cut the expenditures. Theoretically it's nice, but there is a question. If we have this agency, for what reason do we need national agencies, like government, parliament, prime minister, etc.? Only for dignity? Only to be proud? It's too costly thing. But the problem is that the Europeans still are very much in favor of their national governments. And then they don't want to resign of national governments and parliaments. So maybe opposite situation. Maybe first should the agency, which could consist of clever people, prepare the budgets for 28 countries. They prepare, everything works, etc., and then the budgets go to the national parliaments. And everything could work. But let's assume that in one or two countries, populist won. And then the populists in national parliaments are looking at the budgets and are saying, okay, those people or sectors were voting for us, they have to have 20% more. So they are increasing expenditure. So it's a problem, technical problem, but not easy to solve. But the more deeper question is, what Europe are we going to build? What European Union? Confederation or federation? Europe is divided because part of the nations are for confederation, in particular core countries, and part of Europe, in particular peripheral countries and some countries of common market are in favor of federal Europe. So federal Europe would mean that we would have to build, let's say, double system of taxing. Local taxes and federal taxes. Some money would go to the capital cities and some money would go to Brussels, like in the States. Some money goes to the States, some money goes to DC. When Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana are doing badly, the money from DC goes to help Louisiana, Alabama, Mississippi. And of course the net takers say this is the ideal solution. But the net payers say never. We never agree with such solution. Because you are lazy, you don't work wisely enough, you consume too much, and you are expecting we'll be paying for you. Work harder, work wiser, consume instead 3 meals daily, one every second day, and you will be happy. So this is just the beginning of discussion. No solution. Problem. And fifth scenario, just only to make fun, Chinization of Europe. We have sometimes discussion with our Chinese colleagues. Sometimes they are serious, sometimes less serious about that. But Chinese say, 4 trillion, what is the problem? We have exactly 4 trillion of US dollars in cash. We can invest, but you have to fulfill, they say to the Europeans, certain conditions. What are the conditions? I don't know if I can say, but I can at the university. What are the conditions? They say, number one, you have to recognize and say that China was, is, and probably will be a democratic country. But there is a problem because at least in Europe, many governments were saying for many years different things. So how to change mind overnight? Condition number two, you have to remove all trade obstacles, in particular in terms of weapons, new technologies, chemical products, etc., engineering, etc. It's not easy for Europeans to do that, for obvious reasons. And they say, third requirement. Third is, you have to implement strong and deep structural reforms within the European Union. Also not easy to implement for the European Union. So, not easy to live within the European Union, but I can tell you that we joined, I mean Poland, I want to say 5 sentences, and that Poland changed completely after joining the European Union. And what I wanted to say is that we have probably only problems within the European Union, but we want to live with the problems in European Union. We prefer to live in European Union instead of not having problems and live in the previous system. And in case of Poland in particular, three sectors enjoyed very much being within the European Union. Sector number one, education, universities and students. Our students nowadays can study easily, even without payment. Britain is the only exemption. Without any payment in 27 countries. They don't need any visa. They go study for a semester, 2 semesters, 3 semesters to get a degree, etc. And every year, approximately 35,000 students from Poland go to very good places in Germany, France, Benelux countries, Austria, etc. So once you take into account that we have been in European Union 15 years, so 15 years times 30,000 means that 450,000 of students were educated at least partly in some very good universities. So they changed their mind completely. It's completely different world, and completely nowadays we deal with absolutely different people than in the past. But this is not the only, not the only positive sign. Also, Polish universities and academias had to change their habits in terms of teaching, researching, etc. Because otherwise, the students will go abroad and no one will be studying at the universities, and the universities will have to fire professors, teachers, etc. So we have completely different system just now in terms of equipment, teaching methods, etc., etc. Sector number two, agricultural sector. They are the winners, and they are afraid very much to join the European Union because they are afraid that the Germans, the Dutch, others will come overtake the land. Some are coming and buying because it's free market. But they are very successful. Why? Because agriculture products are still in Poland approximately 30-40% cheaper than on European market. And we are here where there is free movement of goods. So no one can stop export. The products are cheaper, are healthier, and very tasty because we don't use much organic support to grow the products. And they are going. So east and central part of Poland is producing, agriculture products, and the western part is organizing the process of selling. So everybody is enjoying. And additionally, no time just now, but there is, from our perspective, this fantastic common agriculture policy run within European Union, because you can do nothing and they pay you. If you do nothing, if you only watch at the fields, they pay you money. So it's great. Just not to produce, because overproduction, ironically. If I had time, I will deliver some graphs and I will explain you. And the third sector, which is enjoying very much, is sector of transportation and communication. Roads, airports, highways, etc., etc. Because, why? Because the Europeans don't want to be killed traveling. So they are supporting countries which join European Union to improve roads. And so we are enjoying very much. And not saying about cultural changes, political changes, etc., etc. People also learn by seeing, by observing, by discussing, etc. Young generation just now knows that you have to learn foreign language if you want to be understood, etc. It's funny to go to the library instead to the bar, etc. Well, certain institutions are probably suffering. We were a country of, how to say in English, hard drinkers. The Russian tradition was strong alcohol. People change, believe or not, their habit. They are drinking only, almost young generation, wine and beer. So some can complain. I mean, those who are producing alcohol, strong alcohol, 40%, 50, 60%, they are suffering because some of them went into bankruptcy. So I am not saying that everything is great or beautiful, etc. It's not true. But it's giving a chance, it's giving a perspective, etc. So, a lot of problems, but I hope that because most people, most governments are, they do understand that it is one of the best solutions, one of the best products in Europe. So maybe together we will find also solutions to get out of the problems, and you will be coming not only to Poland, where I am cordially inviting you, but also to Europe. Thank you very much.
It's a little late in the day, but perhaps one or two questions. Harry? Just,
I afraid that you can ask the question. You know?
I'm just wondering what will happen if this country decided to get out of the European Union and try to implement their own independent monetary policies. If they default, what will happen?
So, frankly, it's good, very good question. I have forgotten to talk about it. Frankly, there is no such possibility. Theoretically, they can, but practically, no. Why? Number one, when you read about Eurozone, just now you can read hundreds, if not thousands, of pages how to get into European Union. But there is no single sentence how to get out of European Union. So, and remember please that we are dealing with democratic countries. So, in democratic countries, the process, the decision process is long-lasting process. So, Prime Minister, President, or even Parliament as a single institution can say that I don't like and I'm leaving. But it's just only, it is said. Because everybody has to agree. And this means that to undertake certain decision like that, it probably will take 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. And in 2, 3, 4 years, everything probably can change. I mean, improve. Just now we see that the economy is doing a little bit better, that we observe growth. So people are saying, okay, maybe it's not such bad, maybe we will stay. Also the president, prime minister, etc. But also the cost would be too high. Please remember that if we had a problem in Germany, France, Benelux countries, etc., maybe the question would be extremely important, or the answer to this question would be extremely important, because I know that everybody is equal, that we are also, we think that we are treated in the same way. But everybody knows that Greece is a great country, in particular but the role, the share of the GDP, of the Greece GDP or Greek's GDP in European Union is something like 1.2%. So this is from European perspective when you look at this problem. So you are answering, if you have $100 and you are losing $1. It's important or not? I mean, nice to have 100 instead of 99, but you will survive. But for Greece, it would be a huge problem, because the situation will not change. It would mean for the rest of the world that Greece or Spain in this case or in other countries are not going to follow the certain rules. We say maybe we are wrong. Civilized rules of development. So what would be the reason to invest there? What would be the reason to lend them money? And it's even worse because they have no products they could sell. I mean, it is true that they have sunshine, they have beaches, they have water, but this is also one additional example. And I am giving this example, maybe here is not the proper place, to Polish students or to British students or whatever students, French students, there is no single good example that once you concentrate your economy only on tourism, you will be successful. Tourism is important. You have to develop, there is no doubt about it, but not only tourism. So, because also tourists are not going, because they have social, or they had social unrest, etc. So now the situation is less complicated in this sense that the PIGS countries are no longer talking about getting out, and because they feel that it will be better. However, thank you for this question. It would not help them, at least in the short run. In long run, we don't know what is going to happen. Maybe in long run, European monetary union will not survive. We had a lot of unions, monetary unions in Europe and all over the world, and they didn't survive. Hopefully, by the end of my biological life, it will survive. However, we are, to be honest, we are not in European monetary union. Poland is not, and some other countries. And to be honest, we are happy that we are not. Just not. Why? Because we have some influence on the financial instruments, on money instruments, like supply of money, like exchange rate, like foreign reserves, etc. So it's easier to adjust to the changing economic situation. But once you are there, you probably should be, also because having strong currency like is euro, you are also avoiding, let's say, speculative attacks. And we have experiences in Europe. England has such experiences, Russia has such experiences, Italy, etc. And from time to time, we feel that the attackers are coming. Just now, maybe it's not the best time because of crisis, but I think that for them now, at this moment, the worst moment is probably behind European a monetary union, it's better to be.
Well, I think this will be the last question. You could introduce yourself.
Thank you, Professor, for your insightful presentation. I am Frank Olea from the Philippine Embassy in Beijing. My question is, every time you deal with economic integration, you have to deal with the synchronization of business cycles of countries. And I'm sure you have a lot of experience with that in Europe. But there are also economic stabilizers that happen, like if there's a crisis in one portion of the region, the people who are unemployed, the surplus labor, will transfer to the other regions which are more prosperous. So what has been the experience so far of the EU on this particular aspect? Thank you.
It's a very good question. We have excellent idea. You are asking very good question. We have problem, generally. I have no problem to answer the question, but philosophical problem exists. Because when you do not forget, please, common market. And I repeat, common market is about 4 freedoms. Free movement of goods, free movement of services, free movement of capital, and free movement of labor. So we could say, I could answer theoretically in this way. And we have here, let's say, Warsaw, we have Berlin, we have London, and we have Brussels. So from Europe common market perspective, it doesn't matter where you live and where you work. It's almost like one country. It's very difficult to convince the societies. It's not easy. So frankly, if I am here in Warsaw and I feel that I can make more money in London, I am moving to London and I am living to London, if I can speak English. If I want to live in Berlin, why not to Berlin? And to some extent, or on certain level, on university level, medical doctors level, lawyers level, there is no problem. There is a problem with the second part of the society. In some, how to say, approximately 1.5 million of Poles emigrated from Poland. Approximately 500,000 or 600,000 of them went to Britain. So Britain means Ireland, England, and some other places. And they have problems. Part of the British society, I don't, at least my Cambridge colleagues say to me, 68, 70% are well off, very good educated. They are very much interested in having servants, in having plumbers, in having people responsible for grass, water, whatever. And there is a part of the society which is uneducated completely. 20%, 15%, 17%, I don't know. Who are very much, so the first part is very much in favor of immigration. And the second part is very much against the immigration, because they say they are coming and they are overtaking our workplaces. But the problem is that they will never work. They are not interested, not at all, at certain conditions to work. And just now, there is a question, how to solve this problem? Frankly, nobody knows. From theoretical perspective, it's not a problem. It's even better because of remittances, what you said, etc. But we don't know how to solve. So we expect that it is a long-lasting process. That once the people study together, once the people, because there are a lot of European Union programs supporting not only study abroad, not only at the university level, but also on the high school level. Once people know better each other, once they become, maybe it's too romantic, once they become friends, etc., we will solve this problem. You are absolutely right, it is not easy. It is also not easy because we know that not everybody can emigrate, not everybody can go abroad, that very entrepreneurial and people with initiatives are needed also in the countries of origin, just to create new job places, just to create businesses, etc. No one good solution. The future probably will, to some extent, will solve this problem. But this is a problem. Theoretically, no problem, but practically, it's a problem.
I think you'll all agree that this has been a very rich talk by Professor Nowak. I think for those of you in the Career Minister's course, you did the introduction to systems thinking and systems analytics, and the way you brought out the whole thing, it almost sounds like a systems thinking kind of a lecture on how this all works, a framework on integration, the diversity of Europe and why there are differences. We pointed out what are some of the drivers and what the problems are, and in the end, the scenarios, what might be possible. So I think this has been a very rich talk. So join me in thanking Professor Nowak. Token of appreciation, a book about a man whose name is now on the school, Stephen Zuellig. We're now known as the Zuellig School of Development Management. This is his biography.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
May I say only 2 sentences? Thank you, Dean. It's my pleasure to be with you, and thank you that you didn't leave. You wanted to listen to me. I am admiring really the school, this building, and the city, and you, and we are observing this part of the world and this country, and I congratulate you on huge achievements. Never everything can be done super, but what you have done, school is super, it's excellent, but I'm saying in broader sense. So congratulations to all of you and your countries and the school in particular, and you, Dean, and thank you for having me here, and you and your colleagues and all of you are cordially invited to Warsaw University, to Europe. Thank you very much. All the time.